Oh, hello everybody. Welcome to the Biotopes. So this is the first video as we set up our next Biotope Aquarium. This Biotope is, as is the other display tanks in my fish room, a 75-gallon. This is an Aquarium Masters tank. Beautiful black silicone. I painted the back. It's drilled for an overflow. And I've just got a kind of cheap no-name light on it right now, but it is ready to get built. So stick around here in the video today, and I'm going to take you a little bit of a step-by-step as we get this tank set up and ready and scaped for our new Biotope Aquarium. What do you think it's going to be? Alright, so the first step in this particular scape is I'm going to put down some egg, kind of light diffuser, egg crate, and this is to help kind of diffuse some of the weight. I'm going to have a large number of rocks on this one side. So I put down this light diffuser just to kind of disperse some of the weight from those rocks so there's no sharp points directly on the glass below. So cut that to size, left some room in the front, and that was really is the first step here in setting up this scape. Next step here is I'm going to take a media bag and just fill this up with just some generic gravel, just to try to start to create some height in this back corner. I'm going to take more of that same gravel. This is just generic gravel that you can get from Lowe's or Home Depot. I think it's called pea gravel. And I'm going to start mounding this back corner up. And we use this cheap substrate just as a filler. You don't need it to be active at all. It's an inert substrate. And essentially we're just looking to build up some space. And this is one of the best ways I've found between the media bags and just a cheap gravel to start to create some height in your scape. So as you can see, it's starting to take shape already. Next here we're going to start placing some rocks. These are just rocks that I've found out on my property, in my yard. And I've cleaned them off a little bit. You can see they've got some character and some algae and so forth, and that's all good stuff. But starting to place these rocks in the scape, and again, a lot of this was just to try to take up some space in this back corner, kind of working its way out, as you'll see. Okay, we got some more rocks, again starting to create some height here, and set on that base of pea gravel, and working our way out to the front and across the width of the tank. These were placed on purpose and try to create some kind of a direction kind of diagonally across the tank here. Okay, the next step here is to create some more movement here in the scape with some more rocks. You know, obviously these don't match. These are just from my yard. But they're starting to, got some with algae there and some with some nice coloration, but they're just working again from high to low across this diffuser, across the tank. That's really the first step in this particular scape in terms of my vision for what's going to happen here. You can see some of the rocks are kind of pointed in that direction. To kind of feel the flow of that coming across the scape. Okay, again, start to add above that gravel. This is paver screening. So it's a real coarse gravel with some real small rocks. I think it's a really good transition when you're working kind of that large pea gravel to sand, which will end up being in this tank. So that's just your very cheap screening material you get at your home goods store. Okay, started adding more of that screening material. It packs really well. So it's a little bit, I had it, a little bit damp here, so it helps to pack those rocks in and limit some of the settling that you might get if you had it just perfectly dry. So again, just trying to take up some space, a cheap material that also will look natural. You can kind of see the really coarse sand and very fine gravel mix in this type of product. So I really like this a lot. Here we go, starting to take shape here. More screen material out and down the slope of these rocks that we've created. You can see it's starting to spill over that light diffuser material. And what I'm trying to do is leave a portion of these rocks uncovered because they're going to be poking out of that substrate. We're going to use that surface later on here in the skate, but again, moisten that material so that it packs well. Just a quick rinse and kind of helps get some of the dirt and dust out, but don't worry about that too much. Again, creating that base of that screen material, it's working its way out here, keeping that height into this kind of open spaced area on the left, leaving some of those rocks exposed. And again, I don't know if you can tell, but this is 75 gallons, so get some sense of scale from those rocks. They're all, I would say, medium-sized rocks just that I found in my yard. Alright, now we started adding some sand, and this is pool filter sand, so it's a little more coarse than, say, clay sand. I prefer the pool filter sand more. It's easier on the plants, and really looks natural. It's got good mixed color in the grains, and it's not too fine. We've added some more sand, particularly on this mound on the right. And just know, even though this is not super dry sand, it will settle. It will start to flow kind of down that embankment, and that's okay. Be prepared for a little bit of that. I'm going to try to minimize as much as I can, but just know that's going to happen. So I'm going to start placing some wood. Now this wood, the two sticks here on the left, here in the front of the side view, will initially float, but they will eventually sink. This piece on the right that's kind of working its way down the slope, I'm going to have to adhere, which I'll show you here in the future. But this is pure driftwood from Lake Erie here in northern Ohio, so it is completely dry. It will not float, or will not sink, sorry. I don't care how long you soak it, just won't happen. So that's going to have to be attached. The next step in this build is I'm going to mount, like I have in the other previous Biotope builds, the light from the ceiling. You can get these mounting wires and attachments just from Amazon. I think they work really well, really easy to use. Just drill a hole in the ceiling. It's got an anchor, and it's really easy to adjust. Next up, we've got the light mounted. You don't have to screw it into the light. Most of these lights have little indentations on the side that you can attach the wires to. Very easy. You can see I've got the polycarbonate lids that I've cut out and customized for the setup. Yeah, just make sure your light's level, left to right and front to back. Set at the height that you can easily get into the tank, and gives you some space and really lights up the area well. So what I've tried to do here in the beginning is glue that driftwood to the rock. I've also placed this other rock kind of out on its own to kind of continue that feel. Alright, so now I've started to plant some Balsinaria. This is a couple different types, just your general Italian val, and I think there's 1 or 2 pieces of Vallisneria rubra. I've got some dwarf hairgrass planted up here at the top, and some Java moss along the rocks. Just glued it down, the Java moss, with just some super glue gel, and it sticks really well there. So now we're going to start filling this thing up. Obviously it'll be super cloudy, and you can see some of those sticks are going to float initially. We've already gotten some movement of that sand and substrate, which again we knew was going to happen, so just be prepared for that. And that dwarf hairgrass is hanging on at the top. So starting to give some clues on the area maybe that this biotope is designed around. We've got some val, which is native to this area, some Java moss, which is native, and some dwarf hairgrass, or the I think it's Eliocaris species. Here's the sump underneath, just a 10-gallon DIY sump with the overflows returning into the sump, and then I've got two pumps to return. So the wood is floating like we thought it would. It's a little bit hazy obviously here with all the substrate and stuff mixed up. We got some slippage of the substrate down the hills, and some of that dwarf hairgrass has come out, so we'll need to figure out a way to reattach the one piece of wood and get some of that stuff planted. You can see some of that substrate is kind of leaked, which we thought would happen. So here we are, the tank is completely full, and you can see again some of the sand and screening has kind of fallen down the hill. We got some slippage there. Obviously that piece of wood came undone. We tried gluing that to that rock, but did not stay. So here we've replanted the dwarf hairgrass up on the top of that hill. See that up there? There's one at the top and then one in front of that rock there on the right. Still a little bit cloudy, but we're getting closer. Got that val planted along the back. That should start spreading pretty soon. And we just glued this Java moss onto these rocks. Just took that from another tank, and yeah, before you put water in there, just throw some super glue gel on the moss or on the rock, and then stick it to it, and then very quickly, especially if it's moist, it'll harden all the way. Here I've got the wood fastened back down. So what I do in these scenarios where the tank's already filled and glue didn't take, or the wood just is not sinking, I take a stainless steel screw, I drill a hole through a rock. You can't see this underneath, but those rocks have a hole drilled through them. Take a stainless steel screw and just fasten the rock to the wood. And I've got 2 rocks there. And I just laid it kind of like it was laying, like the wood was laying on top of those rocks, down kind of an embankment in a river. And then you get, in this case, a piece of driftwood that won't stay glued down, fastened, and it'll stay there indefinitely. And you can hide it with sand and rock and that type of thing. So I'm starting to get, the wood is starting to get waterlogged, and you can see the water starting to get clear, a lot more clear now. So those other sticks is starting to get water logged down and sink. See the dwarf hairgrass is staying put, all the Java moss is stayed put, obviously the wood I screwed to those rocks have stayed put, and it's come along nicely. Now we are ready to start the food web. This is a resurrection jar. I've got a video I'll post above here on how we set this up. Now, the mistake I made, a couple mistakes. One, I poured it in a little too fast, so it really caused a lot of the sand to kind of flow downhill there, and I think it ended up uprooting some of the dwarf hair grass. The mistake that I made with the resurrection jar is when I went and collected in my local stream, I got too much of kind of the riverbed mud and silt. And if you follow Father Fish at all, he talks a lot about resurrection jars and starting food webs, and he said, I think edited over time, not to include a lot of that kind of riverbed mud and silt. It's just too strong with nutrients. So, but what's in here is water from the river, sticks. You can see that hair grass floating by there. Sticks, leaves, pieces of roots, snails, small copepods, whatever is in there. I let this sit for probably 2 months indoors, and we had all kind of critters grown in there, and this, essentially seeds the tank with food for the inhabitants. It's starting the ecosystem in this particular biotope, and it's a really cool experiment. My first time doing a resurrection jar or starting a food web in this way. I've started food webs in other ways, starting with putting snails or blackworms or shrimp into the biotope, kind of to set the stage for the higher order inhabitants, like the fish. But you can see here up close a lot of that broken down organic material, and it'll continue to break down, continue to provide food for the microorganisms, and eventually up the food chain for the fish that will end up being in this biotope. So really excited to see how this turns out. So we waited another day. It's gotten all cleared up. That wood's starting to sink more and more. See, the water's cleared. I replanted the hair grass. You can see just some of the up-close detail of that organic material, leaves, silt, soot, sticks, twigs. I moved a little bit of it around, but not too much. I really wanted to kind of get it in the flow of the water and just let it take it where it goes. And it'll be moved around by the inhabitants very soon. Next here I just added some more leaves. These are mainly oak leaves that I've collected, harvested out of my yard, and they've been drying in a cardboard box for about a year. And again, I just put those in there, rinsed them off in hot water, and just put them in, and just we'll let them sink over time. But this ecosystem, this biotope, is really starting to take shape. I'm really excited to share this with you guys. And lastly here next, I'll show you kind of an updated view of where we are at today. Alright, sorry for some of the glare, but this is the updated biotope. So you can see we've come a long way. All the leaves have settled, the wood has settled down, and we've got a lot going on here. I added even some small pebbles, kind of scattered those on the rocks just to add some more detail. But you see we've got, because of the high number of nutrients, we've got some algae in the substrate, and even some hair algae on some of the Java moss here. I've added some shrimp. There's a ghost shrimp here. I've also got 3 Amano shrimp in here. There's about 10 ghost shrimp, 3 Amano shrimp. All are relatively native to this area. You can see some algae starting to get on the rocks. And I pulled some of the hair algae out of the Java moss, but we're going to kind of let it go for now and let it work itself out. You can see in the back, I've already got a piece of some of that Valsinaria that it's sent a runner out. I did put in root tabs near each of the pieces of val and the dwarf hairgrass. You can see some more shrimp in the back there. And again, this ecosystem is off and running. There's snails, there's shrimp, small microorganisms all over, I'm sure. You can see here some of the detail with the leaf litter and twigs. There's an Amano shrimp up here. You guys can see that on that giant hairgrass. You guys can see that. That's one of the Amanos. And this dwarf hairgrass is starting to take off pretty good. There's one there, and there's one kind of in the back corner. And this is giant hairgrass here, these 2 larger pieces. And those all spread out via runners. So I'm interested to see how that goes. I've not kept this plant before, so either of these hair grasses, so I'm interested to see how that goes along. But it's really going off well. I'm just about ready to add fish to this tank, but you can see kind of the surface, there's just some film. Again, a lot of material in the water, a little bit of algae. But that's all part of the ecosystem, and it will balance itself out here very soon, I'm sure. So it's really starting to go well. And that is the update on this biotope. So there we go. That is a little bit on how to build a biotope, at least how I build a biotope. This biotope here is really structured around the Xunjiang River, and it's in the Pearl River Basin in southern China, that area. I'll throw a map up now so you guys can see where that's at. And so this is an exciting build for me, kind of that southern Asia, Southeast Asian build. All the fish inhabitants are going to be from this specific river basin. And you know, as you saw, we've got the food web already started. Some of the invertebrate inhabitants have already been added to this tank. What main fish, or what's the first fish you all think I'm going to add to this biotope? Please put that in the comments below, and let's see who's right. I think I'm sure some of you have a pretty good idea what's going to go in here. I'm excited to see who's correct and who gets it first. So thanks so much again for stopping into the biotopes. Excited on this build, and be sure you subscribe and share this for other you friends that are interested in Biotope aquariums. And like I said, be sure to subscribe so you can follow along with this particular biotope and all the other biotopes in my gallery. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.